the thing is, that's quite interesting. Like you point out the other universe of apps or universe of ideas and products that they want to go down. If that's the case, then that makes sense in a sense. Why? But maybe I'm thinking about it too deeply. But it's almost like they want it to be as meh as possible, so that if someone's reporting on a court case with them, presumably they'll say, "Oh, and Meta's been taken to court," and then therefore Facebook can just continue to just be Facebook without constantly the product being mentioned every single time something kind of. So that makes sense. But if it's the other stuff as well, then I'm wondering whether that's just a happy coincidence, or what's that the joy of painting, a happy mistake. Yeah, do you remember? So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it is with Mark Zuckerberg in particular, but whenever he does any kind of presentation, he looks like a deep fake. But a real
I just don't. He's just, he's just very tough to relate to. I think his public perception is like at an all-time low, and sometimes it's like the information that like he says is just
there's so many stuff on record that he
just,
said that is so obnoxious and horrible. That's the problem. Right? And he's never addressed it in a way that was human. It's just like the stuff where he called people dumb bleep for sharing their data when he first set up the first iteration of Facebook, and all of his personal blogs when he was insulting classmates, and then face mash. If you've seen the film, most of the. I mean, obviously that's a dramatized version, but all of the court bits are based on transcripts that were actually real, and how he's mocking and belittling lawyers and stuff like these things. There are well documented, and so, and also I think it's his actual personality seems to be quite sarcastic and brutal. So when I think he was asked in Congress, I think it's Congress when they have those committees, and they asked him if Facebook had any competitors, and he goes, "Well, there is Google Plus," and then he smirked. So it's like it's almost like it may have just been like if off the cuff thing. You think that's quite funny, but it did seem like if you
it was just like a reflection of like his character. He's like
and I think
he's literally in a legal proceeding.
If you look at other CEOs and how they approach stuff, like even Jeff Bezos, who does seem a bit risky and comfortable in saying stuff, even he approaches that stuff with a bit more respect. And I think because the public has a perception of Mark Zuckerberg as it is, that those small things, they don't help. And so when he tries to be like the Steve Jobs, like they all try to be like Steve Jobs, right? They present themselves with these black tops and, hi, and, and try to be this really passionate. But the thing is, Steve was genuinely passionate about what he did. He really cared, and it lived it through. These other guys, I don't think they care about the entirety of what they do with the same intensity as Steve Jobs does, but they try to present themselves to do, and it just looks so fake. Like that's why anytime Zuck appears anyway, he just looks like a deep fake. Like it's like someone's just superimposed this android robot. And again, it's like even if he does care, I mean, because it looks like he really cares about the gaming stuff and the Oculus and the 3D.
Yeah, and I like. I don't know. I think there's going to be some value in AR. I still just think there's going to be a barrier to get people to put. The idea of the metaverse, I just want to be on record. Like, I'm not personally a fan of. I think that we have enough technology, and like this is somebody that's like very bullish on new technology, that like loves technology, has been in it my whole life from like the second I got a computer, and I made my career in the field of technology. I just like don't love the idea of like taking people away from real world experiences. I think about like how much time people are already spending scrolling through like TikTok and Instagram and like, other social platforms and refreshing their timelines. So then if we take that,
but can I ask you,
now we're putting a headset on.
But can I ask, how is this any different realistically from?
I just think there's going to be a lot of
the previous generation who just watched TV all day. Like the first thing they come and flip on the tube and they be transfixed until they go to sleep, or radio or newspapers.
Yeah, it's a fair point. But imagine you don't watch. So you used to watch TV, right? And then your mom or dad would call you in for dinner, and then you'd sit at a table and talk to your family for a little bit, right? In this metaverse, you're just totally disconnected. You don't even know, like, you don't even know if the relationships are genuine. My critique of it is it's like it feels like a little dystopian, where it's like is this the world that we want to be in? Like video chats are already what they are, right? It's a means to get something done. It's a means of communication. Do we really need to put VR headsets on to talk about a project, or can we just like quickly have the conversation? It's like, what is the end goal? So I think like the things. This is like why I think VR and like AR is cool in certain fields. Like I think it would be awesome for like VR and Oculus to like penetrate like healthcare. Like imagine a doctor that's a specialty doctor that can only do a certain type of surgery is located in New York City, and there is a like some kid in India that needs a very complex procedure, and if they had the hospital with like he could put a headset on and do the surgery virtually and have like, because we have I think we've all seen the Boston Dynamics robots. Like the robotics portion of this is totally possible, or within reason today. So I guess it's like there is value in the technology, but like all technologies, like it needs to be you need to have barriers, and like we need to make sure that we're like doing it and we're thinking about the negative repercussions.
I've tried VR stuff, but I get.
Have you ever used an Oculus too? Like, have you ever like put like a VR headset on?
That. And I remember in another podcast which I used to run years ago, like Designer vs Developer, I interviewed someone from Samsung, who Ada Rose, I think her name is. If I can remember correctly, and her specialism was like the VR stuff, and she said you have to be really like accessibility for AR. You have to be really careful because it's easy to make people get sick if you show certain type of imagery or flash things. Like you can actually make people really ill. And so some of the stuff she was covering was the dangers between like if people were to hack these devices, you could make people really sick. So imagine in this scenario, if someone's doing surgery and that was hacked, you just can imagine the horrible things that could happen as the case. But I suppose with the hacking thing or even accessibility, that's something you have to inbuilt into the system. I just never had the like with the glasses and all this other stuff that you put in front of your face. It's never really appealed to me. But then it may be a thing where we've been indoctrinated with the baggage of the technology that we've grown up with for the best part of 30, 40 years, right? And so for us to relearn a new way of inputting something is harder than just continuing using the thing that you're used to. So for instance, again, we spoke about this before with like the super app versus the search bar. If we join technology at the point where super apps were the way to do things, then that might be the better way to do it. But because we're so indoctrinated with the search box and being able to find anything, that workflow just works. It's when, with any technology, it's when it clearly demonstrates that the thing that you're using today is really archaic. And so it's like, again, the best example is when you look at the Nokia phones and then you look at the time and then you look at the iPhone. And when the iPhone came out, if a piece of technology can make everything else look like archaic and really old and dated, then you know that thing is the future, right? And so, and it's like that aha moment and your realization of, okay, this is what we're glimpsing in what the world can be. Until Oculus does that clearly, or VR or AR does that in a way which is not just a gimmick. So, there's some places in the UK which has like old Roman castles, and you can put on like a AR app VR headset, and you can see like they'll rebuild the buildings where like sort of pillars would have been once upon a time and stuff like that. And that's really cool. But that barrier to entry is like you need an expensive device, you need a headset, you need like there's all these other steps that are not immediately intuitive that allow people just to do it. Like you can't just walk into a place and it's immediately there, and that's kind of like what you need it to be. And I guess the cost is also a barrier as well. But yeah, I mean that's all meta, right?